Welcome everybody that's watching and to our guest today to the Building Bellingham Pivot Show. We've got two returning guests. We've got a couple of the, as I would say, the OGs of the Building Bellingham Pivot series when it first started. So Tony Moceri with Moceri Construction up in the upper left-hand corner here. Welcome back. You're on the maiden voyage of this series. Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
back.
that was fun, and that was I think that was one of my first Zoom calls ever. So he broke me in there. Now we've been doing them nonstop.
Right. Can't stop. So Tony, for those of you that are watching this, Tony, tell us a little bit more about you, who you are, what you do. And I know it's not just Moceri Construction. There's more to you than that, but that's a big part of who you are. Yeah,
so I'm the vice president of Moceri Construction, family business. We do custom homes and large remodels, and I've done some commercial over the years. Also a real estate investor. We do a little bit of our own developing, and I do a few other things, but on the construction end of things, that's it. But very, very involved in real estate, very involved in kind of some of our own projects, and then lots of custom stuff.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us again. And Rob Lee, welcome back. And you're not actually in Whatcom County at the moment. You are in Sunshine.
Yeah, I'm a little south of Whatcom County. I'm down in Rancho Mirage, Palm Springs area for the week.
Rubbing it in. For everybody that's he's rubbing it in. But Rob, thank you for joining us again. And you are the executive officer for the Builders Industry Association of Whatcom County. Tell us a little bit more about what you do here in Whatcom County.
Yeah, we're a professional trade association that supports builders and subcontractors in pushing the single-family housing market, because our belief is that community is built through single-family homes. And if you've been in Whatcom County very long, we're in a critical shortage of affordable housing. In fact, a lot of us have sort of abandoned that term. Because what's affordable for me might not be for you, or vice versa. And so we've really switched to attainable housing. But either way, our inventory is frighteningly low. I mean, you see that every day in the real estate business. And so really trying to work with local and state governments to try and free us up to build more homes and more types of homes, sizes and cost levels. And because you really need new construction at every price point, so that people that are living in an entry-level house, they've been there for 5-6 years, the kids, the family's grown, and they need to move up into that next level. Well, they need to be able to find that next level so they can free up the entry level for a younger couple who's just starting out. And we don't have a lot of inventory at any of the price points. So
yeah,
do that, serve the members. We run some pretty exciting programs. The return on industrial insurance is a favorite. We have a health trust where we can get typically companies from 5 to 25. We can save them a lot of money on health insurance. And then we try and do a lot of opportunities for networking. Obviously, we've been a little curtailed in that last couple of months, but we try and have at least one event a month where members can gather and get to know each other, and sometimes bring the family in. We'll do a dunk tank and a bunch of other fun stuff at our offices. And so, yeah, just trying to support the members and the industry.
This is something, I mean, we've been a part of the BIW for a long, long time, and my dad was, but I've been on the board. My brother's currently on the board. Done Built Green through them. We do the ROII. We got our, so there's, it's definitely a very integrated with the building community with what goes on there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I'm the new guy. I've been there about a year and a half, so I'm figuring out a newer industry. My dad was a builder up in Canada for many years, but I've been in the nonprofit world for the last 23 or 24, and this opportunity came up, and it's been a ton of fun to try and make a difference. So I'm still learning as I go, but it's a fantastic organization, supporting great people here in Whatcom County.
Awesome. Let's talk about inventory. I know last time we talked, it was a whole different world than it is right now. And it's only really been a few, just under 2 months. But Tony, you're an investor, a builder. Rob, you're part of this organization that's pushing for more single family homes. How important is inventory, and where are we at right now? What do we need in Whatcom County?
Man, well, I think Rob hit it on the head that we need it at every level. I mean, I work with people with, I have some rentals and we do fix up some houses and sell them. And that's generally, more the entry level people or people that are going to be buying soon or people that are renting. And then we build, $1 million plus homes. Right. And I hear from people at every single level that there's a shortage, right? They can't find what they want, where they want, or anything at all. I got an email over the weekend from a friend of one of my current tenants, and they go, "Oh man, we like the house. We know they're moving out in August. Can we get in line?" And there's definitely this sense of desperation among people to find. It's a combination, right? Of they want a home, but they don't just want any home, right? They want it to be safe and clean and as affordable as it can be in Bellingham and or Whatcom County and those sorts of things. And there are a lot of factors that limit the volume of housing and the affordability. And obviously COVID has not helped that.
Right. Yeah. And in Whatcom County, I mean, we have this weird crossroads of the average income in Whatcom County. The median household income is not necessarily keeping up with the prices that we're seeing. And so for that reason, we see a lot of people being afraid to move, or what's on the other side if I sell. So that's the resale side of things, which you're both obviously well versed in. But on the new construction side, how important is that to stimulate that economy by creating new inventory?
Yeah, it's great for the economy, right? To have building going on, because it creates so many jobs, and then it also creates that inventory for housing. But it's hard. I mean, this is not everybody, but a ton of people want to live in Whatcom County. It's an extremely desirable place to be. So you combine that with, we have only so much available dirt here, and we only have so many available builders, and there's a process to being able to build. So really it's a pretty crazy supply and demand issue. If you think about that the demand is so high and I think growing, and the supply it can't grow fast enough for a laundry list of reasons, really.
Right. And Rob, what are you seeing as far as, I mean, we've got this, there's a political side to it, which we don't need to get super involved. We can talk about it if you want to, but there is a political side to what's going on with our economy here locally and obviously statewide and nationally. But we're being restricted at this exact junction. We are restricted from pulling new permits for building. So obviously homes that are already in transit of being built can continue to be built per phase one, right? Now we're kind of all waiting on the cusp of phase two. So you've got political reasons that we're not able to build. We're kind of finishing out our inventory, so it's dwindling, it's diminishing. What are you seeing from your standpoint as a part of your association, from a political standpoint, and then also from an economic standpoint going forward? How is this going to impact our county?
Yeah. Well, we live in an interesting county because certainly, in Bellingham, you've got some very progressive people that are mostly against individual home construction. They're wanting to have higher density and those sorts of things, which is great. I'm all for, we haven't had a really nice sort of condo project in Bellingham for many years for all kinds of reasons. And I think we're ripe for that. But I also think, they just put a moratorium on single family development in the city. And that, I think that's problematic because everybody I talk to really wants a yard for the kids to run around and the dog to run around in, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a bit of that NIMBYism going on where there's folks that have that in the city and now they're saying no more. And to me, that's troubling. But the thing that I'm watching is really as we get started, and we're hoping June 1 is what Governor Inslee, we're on a work group with the state association, and it looks like June 1 is when we're going to be able to hit phase 2 and jump on it. But I'm a little concerned with a few of the cities in Whatcom County that their planning departments haven't been keeping up. They've assured us that their people have been working from home and been very productive and that sort of thing. But I've got some members that are waiting on, permits and some land development, land use, approvals that they're getting dangerously near their expiration date, and they can't get any assurances that we're going to get some help, from the folks that have the power to say yay or nay on that. And so that's concerning, because I think, Leo, you're right. I do think that little bit of inventory that we had, there's some great housing developments up in Ferndale that are newer and are still building. Malloy Terrace area is a good example, and then that one up on top of Church Mountain. But they're going to sell those out relatively quickly. And if we don't have stuff in the pipeline, you mentioned phase 2 up where I live at Sea Smoke. Well, it'd be fantastic to have phase 2 going. I think it's 70 lots or something like that. Well, that would be awesome. Now, granted, Semiahmoo is a bit of a niche market. There's, you're going after probably people that are empty nest. They're waiting for grandkids, or they have them and they just want to live out near the spit, and it's a lifestyle thing. But, even like Sudden Valley, which is historically has been a jumping off point for people on their first home, because you're a little ways out of town, the prices are a little lower. If you're a local, you think anything further than a 10-minute drive, you got to pack a lunch and get an oil change for the car. But even Sudden Valley has just woken up, right? I mean, I moved out in October, and I think I saw 6 homes, and there's 2,200 empty lots out there still. Now, they're not super desirable. They can be a tough build and all those things, but they're affordable. So I'm sort of surprised that area hasn't ramped up as much, but I think sooner or later it will, just because for builders, the price of the lot is pretty attractive, and it can keep their cost per square foot down. But
Rob, you mentioned something there where you were comparing, well, there's lots out in Semiahmoo and this and that, but I always kind of see it as there's a certain number of housing units in Whatcom County, and that's all we have, right? And so, and people are at different levels, right? Well, again, it's that supply and demand issue, right? If I'm doing a major remodel for someone, and that means they're out of their house, well, they're now taking 2 housing units.
Right.
If I can finish that remodel, they're down to using 1 housing unit.
Right.
Someone's building a new house and they have to wait to sell their house or whatever. And so it does matter. And there is, that person might be living in a $500,000 home and they're upgrading to $1 million home.
Yep.
Well, there's a lot of people looking for a $500,000 home in Whatcom County.
Yep.
And so those overall number of units does matter, and the houses at the top being filled and built out impacts all the way down. And so I think that does play a factor. You can't discount just those, and there's people moving here, right? And if they show up here with a bunch of money, if there's a limited number of houses, if they say I'm coming, they're going to find something to buy. And Leo, you hear it every day, right? There's so many people that are here locally. They've got local jobs. Maybe they grew up here. They can't buy a house because they get outbid every single time. I mean, a lot of those are people coming from outside the area.
Coming from hotter markets.
Yeah.
They've got cash in their pocket. I'm really intrigued to see, with the whole effect of COVID as we move forward, with people being able to work remotely, and it's actually worked. I'm wondering if like Facebook announced it, that X% of their staff are going to be able to work anywhere they want in the world for a year to 18 months before they have to report in, this is where I'm working from. And so I'm looking at that going, what are some of the hot areas in the country? Us, Boise, You could name 8 or 10 top
And, yeah.
cities where people are moving for a lifestyle and they can still do what they've been doing, but they can do it remotely. So I'm intrigued to see if that continues to kind of drive our higher prices and some of those issues.
Yeah. And Tony, one thing I wanted to bring up here for people that are watching this. So you're both in the world of, obviously, Tony, you do remodels, but a lot of what you do is new construction as well. And Rob, obviously this is your world as well. Maybe step me through, if you have the ability, buying a resale property, and resale meaning that it is not a brand new house, versus building a house, what are the advantages to building a new house versus buying resale, especially in a very, I mean, would you consider Bellingham and parts of Whatcom County to be inflated pretty heavily?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, it's, if you look at the last 10 years, what has happened in the cost of a home to buy or to build, it's staggering. There's advantages for both sides, getting, for a lot of people, it's getting the home they really, really want. It lives the way they want to. Often you can live in a smaller house if it's a custom home because it's designed to live the way you want it to live. Maybe it's in the location you want, you can't find it, or on the right land. All of those, play a factor. The downside is, often people are having to they're still living somewhere. It takes a long time to design, permit, build. So this is not like you show up into Bellingham and I want to build a house and 3 months later you're there, right? That's what we need the developers for. That's what the existing inventory is for. I don't have the ability to do that. And then costs, there's the cost to build, but then there is, your permitting fees and your, access to sewer and water, whether you're in the county or in the city, and wetlands and critical areas. And I mean, there are so many that, the amount of meadows there are to build in Bellingham is almost non-existent, right? You get outside of Bellingham and there's some opportunity there, but very rarely does someone walk up to me and go, oh, I have this, nice flat lot with, no wetlands and easy setbacks, and here's where my sewer it's.
I hear flat lot with a view. I want a flat
lot with a view. Oh yeah. I mean, you put a view in that and that option is gone. So, that's where the existing inventory is huge, because they do already exist, and you can get into them, now if they're available. But again, it's that supply and demand, right? A lot of people are building because they really can't find another option. They've looked and there's nothing there. And I actually get calls from a lot of people that they frankly can't afford to do it, but I talk them through the process. And then once they learn what the land costs, and, if this is out in the county, putting in a driveway and power, and, once they get into it, it really is, at this point, with where land costs are and where building costs are, it is less expensive to buy an existing home than it is to buy land and build.
So how do you, as for both of you, how do you pinpoint when that tipping point is? Is it being on the inside, being in the world of the builder world? Do you know that tipping point of like, okay, it actually makes more sense for me to just build a house and rent it versus, versus buying an existing home, or vice versa?
Well, man, I don't know. It's been a long time since it was less expensive to buy land and build as an individual than it was to, than it is to buy an existing inventory. If it's a new house that's being built, they're building them often on scale, or they're a general, and they can build and have more efficiencies. Being a customer, it's tough. And there's sales tax. I mean, there are so many pieces that get tacked on to every step. And the bottom line is land, in my opinion, is more overpriced than houses right now.
Quote of the day right there. Yeah. Rob, where do you see opportunity? I mean, for somebody that's lived in Bellingham, you lived in Sudden Valley, and you made a move up north. I mean, where else do you see opportunity outside of Bellingham?
Well, certainly there's some great developments out in northeast Linden, out on the Badger. They've been building like crazy the last couple of years, and there's some really great product out there. Nice views of Baker. We sort of looked at it, but for me, the commute down the Hannigan every morning and home at night just wasn't what I wanted to do. My wife teaches in Ferndale at a school for alternative kids. So for us, it was, Ferndale north to start with. I mean, we couldn't think Bellingham because we bought a new house 13 years ago in Sudden Valley, 2 months before the collapse in 2008. It's sort of how my real estate investing life goes. Hung on for 11 or 12 years, and then the HOA out there just is crazy. So I was like, we're done. Let's sell. And we started looking around, and it was frightening. I mean, the prices in Bellingham, we couldn't even touch what we had out in the valley. So we started looking north. My folks live in White Rock. They're aging. Her folks lives in Ferndale. She teaches in Ferndale. So for us, it was, okay, let's go Ferndale north, the I-5 corridor, and west. And we just kept coming back to well, she wants to be on the spit in those condos out there that Rosendale Honcoop finished a while back, but they started $1 million. So I said everybody in my family would have to die for me to afford that. But we found Sea Smoke, and for the money we had, it was great new construction. It was 1,800 square feet, give or take. We're empty nesters, no grandkids. It's a great 5 to 7 year house, and it was at a pretty competitive price, not too much more expensive than what we had, in Sudden Valley. So for us, it worked because we're close to the spit, and we love walking down there at night, and I'm sure we'll swim in the summertime. And I have a sailboat, so we may decide to keep it there at Semi. So it was great, but price really was the driver, and I either lived in Malloy Terrace on top of my neighbors, and it's a pretty kid-friendly sort of environment in that development, and we thought we were past that, and so we just kept looking at a price point that we kept ourselves to, and that's where we ended up. And I still have a 25-minute commute. It's about the same as it was from Sudden Valley. It's just at 70 miles an hour now. So, for us, really price drove it. I just was not willing to, to be at 550, 580. We ended up in the 470 range. So, it worked for us, and I can't imagine, I'm the only guy at 52 that's out there going, we'd like to downsize. And then you look at what you've got, and you start looking at new in Bellingham or newer, and the price is just frightening, which I imagine is where that's good for your business, Tony, because then they start looking at remodels, right? Like you guys did a really beautiful one for my brother-in-law and sister-in-law out in Ferndale a while back, just last year. And it's awesome. I mean, at first I was like, oh, Matt, why are you redoing this farmhouse? And then he bit off a lot. Well, yeah, that's sort of how they live. Those two. I don't know if you noticed, but yeah.
So, Tony, do you see, have you seen, because of what Rob's talking about, have you seen a spike in requests for remodels, or is new construction consistent for you guys, obviously, because you've been doing it for a long time, very well? And then have you seen a lot more people requesting remodels from you?
It's interesting. We are actually in the midst of a very heavy remodel phase, and I'd say we have been for the last 12 months, where it's been a lot of remodels, some very large ones, some smaller. Our next phase is a lot of new homes, and it's kind of interesting. Part of it is it's taken so long to kind of get to the point of being able to build. I think they're all just going to kind of hit at a very similar time. Generally, a remodel is quite a bit easier to get going, because you don't have all the new land use requirements that you're dealing with, whether it's stormwater, sewer, their wetlands, all sorts of different things, building seasons, the watershed moratorium in Lake Whatcom kind of determines the start of a lot of new builds in Whatcom County. And then there's other ones. I have one where we have to go through this drainage ditch, and so we needed the property had to dry out first, and so seasonally starting a new construction, especially with the dirt work side, if you can get the dirt work ahead, but seasonally it's often in the spring and summer when it's best to start on some of those projects, especially if on a more challenging lot. But there again, if it's an extensive remodel, you're a little bit in the same boat if you're ripping off a roof or something. But I would say in the last 12 months, I felt like I was getting more requests proportionally for new homes than remodels. And I think but the prior 8 years or longer, it had been a very heavy remodel. So I think a lot of the people that are sitting tight have done a lot of their remodeling. Most of the people that are moving here find themselves trying to build new because there's not a lot of inventory, right? So I don't know what's going to happen with the economy. During the last downturn, it became extremely remodel heavy because people decided they were going to sit tight instead of moving. So I could see that happening again, but if I knew what was going to happen with the economy, I wouldn't need to come to work every day, right?
Yeah.
There's people a lot smarter than me that, playing that game.
Yeah. And you're, yeah. Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
Leo, from your end of things, like I listen to Mike Kent, pretty regularly on his radio real estate deal on Saturday mornings. Seems like for 18 months, he gives here's how many sold in Whatcom County and here's how many listed. And it always seems like there's way more sold than listed. Are we still in that pattern?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We actually do a fun little marketing piece called the Daily Paint Chip. And it started out just our marketing director just pulling from the MLS, the multiple listing service, new listings, pendings, and solds. Yeah. And it turned into the Daily Paint Chip because she was just cycling through paint colors. But what we've learned from just analyzing that every single day is that, just the other day, there was 5 new listings and 30 pendings. And that was just obviously Bellingham. So that gives you an idea that like every single time one home comes on, 6 houses sell, right? Which is crazy. So that just goes to show, and I think last time I analyzed it, last year and for the last 3-4 years, it's been about 3 months of inventory, which means that for people that are watching, if no new homes came on the market, it would take 3 months to sell out based on days on market and how many homes are selling at the rate that they're selling. How long it would take to sell out our inventory to the point we'd have no homes for sale. Right. And then, so that just dropped last time I looked at it from 3 months down to 2.4 months of inventory, which is crazy, which means that now it takes even less time, which means we have even less homes. And you could say it's due to COVID, probably has a huge effect on that because of the kind of the fear factor, the unknown variables that are involved in that. But we need new, and on top of that, to speak to our point, we've got all of our new construction pipeline is basically building and selling out. So we can't build new homes. So there's I don't know when that time frame is, Rob, but it's going to be X amount of months down the road that we're going to have almost zero. Our inventory is going to just almost go to zero, right?
Well, I think the other piece of that is we're still learning. So far, we weren't working at all. And then we didn't know how to work, figured that out. And now we're back to work under, we've got a lot of rules we're following.
Yeah.
We had a 30-point checklist that we have to follow on a daily basis now, and social distancing and all these things. So what it's done is, where you used to be able to have 10 people on site, especially at the end of a project, if I have more than 6, I have to have a designated COVID person just watching to make sure they're following the rules. Well, my projects can't afford that. So that limits the number of people I can have on site. I also can't have people within 6 feet of each other working. So now, I can't necessarily have the plumber and the electrician trimming out in the kitchen at the same time. So what can be, is basically making projects very linear. Again, we don't know how long this is going to go on for, but if you add 20% to a schedule to all these different projects, that starts to really, really add up.
You're talking about timeline. You're adding in.
Talking about timeline so it's one thing that we're not even allowed, that new permits can't be issued, but even once they are, and with the existing projects, they just aren't going to happen as quickly to keep people safe. I mean, that's the reality. And so that's going to have a long-term effect on inventory as well.
Yeah. Well, and we're hoping that's going to change with phase 2.
Hopefully it'll lighten up. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you'll be able to work under 6 feet.
Yeah.
And it's essentially with a manufactured mask. Doesn't have to be N95, just can be a dust mask. And then if you're in a tight space under 6 feet, then you have to have an N95, but you can still do it. So I think, again, hopefully Monday.
Yeah. So we're progressing, but there's definitely, but there's a compound effect here. Everybody was behind industry wide before this started.
Yeah.
And that effect has just, I have some customers that are frustrated with me because they want their houses done, and it's uncomfortable, right? Because everybody was slammed before this started. We didn't come out of a recession. We came out of the busiest building time we've ever seen. So, and then, I don't know that we know yet, but there could be supply chain things that we have to deal with also. People are making masks instead of building products, and factories are being closed intermittently. And so there are some factors there that I think are gonna, I don't think we fully understand the scope of how this impact. There's going to be a trickle effect it's going to go on for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you found increases in materials in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks since you've been back to work?
Not really. And so far, when I've gone back to all of my, basically everybody's been honoring everything so far, right? It's all been existing projects. I haven't started anything since this. So everybody's been like, yep, let's get back to work. Let's make it happen. Everybody's been great. We had some issues where the company that made the glass for the cabinet doors, not making anymore, right? So you got to find another source. But so far, everybody's been on the same team. Everybody's doing everything they can to make it happen.
Good.
I don't know what's going to happen in 3 months from now.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about is if we're talking about inventory, we're not talking about the depth of this impact, right? Truly, the true depth of this impact goes beyond to the supply chain, which the supply chain is, yes, you can work, but you can't work if you don't have products. And if you don't have products, you can't, it just shows how important and how interconnected all of this is. And then at the same time, I can't do my job if there's no homes to sell, right? And so that's not to be doomsday by any means, but what we're talking about, well, if you're a seller and you're thinking about selling, if there was ever a time to sell, it would be within the next year, right? Between now and 6 months, year, whatever it may be, right?
Yeah. And, who knows? And so it'll be interesting to see. So there's that piece of it, right? And then there's, how does infill happen? How do some of these more challenging developments get to go? And I could see two things, right? There may not be a lot of people moving in the next 6 months, right? Or 3 months or whatever it is, right? Everybody says, I live in Seattle, I'm staying in Seattle right now, or wherever they live. But, to Rob's point, when people get a little bit more comfortable to move around, they realize they don't have to go back to the office. Bellingham is, Whatcom County is, I don't know where it's on the list, but it is super high up on desirable places to live, right? So I think it's something that we need to be planning for and ready for. Because we have, we're going to have to catch up, but at some point we have to be proactive. Or the sad thing is it's a lot of the people that grew up here that are going to be hurt by it. It's not the people that are moving here from Seattle have the money. The people that are moving here with a job for Facebook or Google or wherever they work, they're probably making, I don't know what they make. I'm not smart enough to work at one of those places, but I'm sure they're making good money, right? So when it comes down to a bidding war, they're going to win. They say, I'm moving to Bellingham, and that's my choice.
I mean, they're used to crazy prices, in Silicon Valley, and having to drive an hour and a half because even with their good pay, they can't afford what living near work costs. So they look at our prices and we think they're high, and they think, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. I grew up in Vancouver, BC. It's the same way. I wandered through that development on the Spit, and I'd say conservatively 30 to 40% of those condos on the Spit that were bought, they've got Canadian license plates in front of them.
And that'll be an interesting piece too, to see how this impacts the Canadian market. Right now they can't come down here.
Yep.
I know of one that just came on the market. It's Canadian owner. It's been a vacation rental. They can't do vacation rental. They can't come down and stay there.
Yep.
Popped up on the market, so there may be some inventory that's created that way, or maybe things open up and they go, all right, buying season again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lady that lives in our neighborhood at Sea Smoke. She closed 3 days before the shutdown, before they shut the border down. And so she got moved in, and we haven't seen her since. She has a home in Vancouver as well. But it's crazy.
That's lot 30, the greenhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her name is Lucy. And we got to know her the first night she moved in. We did a socially distanced sort of cocktail hour, and then she was back the next 2 days, and then nothing.
Yeah.
She's got a handyman that comes and sort of does projects for her, but yeah. So Tony, I think you're right. I think it'll be really interesting to see, because there's a lot of Canadian money in Whatcom County.
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys seeing from you have similar mindsets but different perspectives on this, and Tony, you touched on this a little bit, which was you're noticing that people honoring their original contracts and people just trying to keep things moving forward. How have you guys seen as far as a collaboration within the trades industry, and has it been a generally positive collaboration, or have things been chaotic? What's it been like? What's the experience been like for you guys?
Well, I mean, there was definitely some chaos, especially when it was changing on the daily there for a while. Initially we thought we were essential and we get to keep working. Then we weren't. Then learning all the rules, getting all the PPE set up for my team, making sure all the subcontractors are up to speed on that. Expressing how important, even if they're outside, no matter what they're doing, got to be wearing those masks, got to be doing it. And so I would say that was the chaotic part, was learning those new rules and getting a group of people that don't necessarily like having a boss, don't necessarily, they do what they do because they kind of like being independent people, to follow all these rules. So that was a learning experience. But as far as showing up, being accommodating, trying to get stuff done, I'd say everybody is feeling like they're spread very thin, but everybody's doing their best. Like I said, there haven't been people saying, oh, I'm not honoring that number or whatever. Everybody is, it's a good group of people in our industry that they want to be getting stuff done. And for most of them, it's passion, right? A lot of these people are really smart. They could be doing anything, and they like working with their hands. They like the independence of whatever their trade is. And so it's been good. It's funny how things like this, there's a sense of bonding that happens, right? Where you stick with each other. We've been having some great times. I don't know whether we're going to have good times or bad times here going forward. They're going to be different times, I think. And, and everybody will kind of stick in there together and figure it out.
Yeah.
We have a pretty tight knit group though, that we use the same pool of subs and suppliers over and over again and have been for decades.
Yeah. Rob, are you seeing the same thing?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think everybody was so happy to get back to work, and to get back to work right. There were some folks that were sneaking out and doing work and flying under the radar. And there was some of that, man, they're working, I wish I was working. And so, when we were able to get the deal done with Inslee at the state level, it just was really fun to be able to watch folks get back to work. And, we were wondering if some of the employees wouldn't come back because they were making more money on unemployment. And there was hardly any of that, which was fantastic, right? I mean, it just sort of restores your faith in humanity a little bit. But it's true. I think you're right that those guys like working with their hands, and they were just excited to get back to it. And, they're the kind of guys that like to show up on a job site, and when you leave in the evening, there's something there. It's not like an office job where you're.
Yeah, I mean, my team, they were all stoked to get back to it. I still have a few that, like I said, things are a little bit linear, but we have almost everybody back now.
That's great.
And so, but yeah, it's everybody was chomping at the bit to, get out of the house, maybe get away from the kids, that sort of thing. Job site's a fun place to be.
Yeah. And I get the sense that this time around versus say 2008 through 2010, we had a deeply broken system at that point. And we don't have that this time. We have a pretty healthy housing market, and it could be healthier, right? If we had more inventory at all the price points and all those things, and that's what we're shooting for. But I really do get the sense that it's completely different this time around. And yeah, it did damage. It doesn't do anybody any good to be off for 6 or 7 weeks. But now we just have to lean in with the electeds and really make sure that they sort of understand where we're at in the bell curve of the industry, and that if we don't act pretty soon to come up with some compelling ways to to free up some lots and free up some places to build, that it's gonna be tough in 18 months to 2 years, price wise anyway. I don't think I'd want to be a buyer.
Well, and I think there's that in the long term, but I also think in the short term, you were mentioning permitting earlier, and they're all working from home, but what we've heard is, well, I can't just walk down the hallway and talk to that person.
Right.
So now you're waiting to get back an email or a call. And so there's a loss of efficiency there, just like in every industry, as you're learning how to work remotely. And, I'm seeing that, projects can't start yet. We're finishing up the projects, waiting on permits. What we don't want is in the prime building season to have this gap where people are waiting and they aren't allowed to start yet. I don't know what that looks like. It's not an easy problem to solve, but I think that may be a very real problem, that projects just aren't starting as quickly as, we've had the opposite problem, right? There's been more opportunities to build than the contractors could do. Basically builders were building as fast as they kind of could, with the number of people in the trades we've had locally. I think that could swing a little bit here if we can't get the lots, get the permits, get all those things ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because when I first talked to you both on this show, we were kind of in phase. I don't know if we consider to be phase 1 and phase 2, but we're kind of in a different phase right now. We're almost in a phase where, all right, everyone's got their feet on the ground. We understand what's going on. We got to stay away from each other. We have to wear, protective or, PPE, got to wear gloves, whatever it may be, 6 feet apart on the job site. So I know I asked you this last time, but what message do you want to give people at this stage in the game right now that might be thinking about buying a home or selling or building or other contractors that might be in the world that you're in, what message do you have to give to our community? Maybe if Tony, if you want to start, and then Rob after Tony.
For me, it's plan, be proactive, start the process earlier than you think. There's not enough time. Right? That's the reality. In a normal world, there's not enough time. You always want to start the project sooner. You always want to be done sooner. So I think being proactive and really starting that process early, developing your team, getting your contractor in place. If you're a contractor, getting involved early on in the project, engaging with the architect, talking to the county, talking to the city, talking to places like PSE and Cascade Natural Gas. And I mean, there are so many bottleneck points you can hit in the process. Just being proactive, starting early and start checking those boxes as early on in the process as you can, because, you can really just draw the process out if you make it linear. And that's for that's whether you're the potential buyer, start studying the market sooner, right? If you're going to build a home, you got to start looking at lots earlier on. If you're a builder, you got to really be up to speed on what requirements, where are the bottlenecks, all those things. Have that line of communication open with the county and the utilities and all those different places. It's a process, but Leo, how many times do you get it, right? Where someone says, all right, I want to buy a house, but they haven't gone to the lender yet, right? They haven't done any of these things. So they want to buy, but they're not ready. And so now, their schedule just gets drawn out. So if we're saying there already wasn't enough inventory, if we're saying that problem looks like it may get even tighter for a wide variety of reasons, if you want to be one of the people that's going to get a home, you're going to have to be one of those people that's proactive and be ready and prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. Rob, what about you?
I agree with all of that. Especially if you're going to build, if you want to buy a lot and build, add 8 months to 12 months, like plan your rental longer than you think you have to have it, because there's just going to be stuff that comes up. Or come out to see smoke and live with me. And,
you can be neighbors with Rob. There's actually a couple neighbor lots for you.
Exactly.
Call Leo, be neighbors with Rob.
Keep it simple.
Everything's right in the world.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And Tony, to your point, exactly. It's understanding, like most people, there's a lot of people that haven't purchased a home before or haven't built a home before, but just take the time up front. So if you think you're wanting to start any sort of process in 6 months or a year, start learning. Like go, just because you go talk to a builder right now doesn't mean they're going to rope you into building a house. Just because you're wanting to buy a house doesn't mean the right real estate agent's not going to rope you into buying a house right now. Find that person, or even a lender, find that person that's going to educate you up front, like understand your timeline and say, here are all the things you need to do up front. Here's the amount of time that's going to take, like plan ahead. And so I couldn't agree with you on that more, because there are so many bottleneck points that it could be the littlest thing that can get in the way of between you building the most beautiful home that has everything you want and the timeline that you want and not, right?
Well, and that educating yourself, right? And so, I bought my first house in 2001, and I have looked at almost every single house that has come on the market in Bellingham, Washington since 2001. They come to my inbox and I look at them. So I'm always informed on it, right? I'm just always educated on what's going on in housing. For me, it's specific. I know Bellingham better than anywhere else, but I look at the whole county, but really Bellingham, I look at, whether I'm building it, remodeling it, maybe investing in it, whatever it is, I'm always staying as educated as I can. So if you think you might want to buy a house in a year, call up Leo, have him start sending you all the listings and just start learning, so that when you get ready, you're not surprised by what's on the market, or it's it's a complex world finding a place to live, you know?
Absolutely. The concept of home. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today on the Pivot series. So for those of you that are out there and are any sort of tradesman, any sort of trades, all of the links are below for the Builders Industry Association, Whatcom County. Get in contact with Rob, find out a little bit more. Maybe you can call Tony and find out more about their experience in being a part of that association. I know it's incredibly important to have the lobbyists, all of the support pieces that come along with that, and just the networking piece. Good to meet people. And so all of the links to the Builders Industry Association, which is biawc.com, Facebook and Instagram, it's all in the links below. And then Tony Moceri, you have a blog.
I do. I blog at tonymoceri.com. A couple people read it.
Yeah, I read it.
It's it's kind of whatever pops up to I'm actually doing a post tonight. It's about cows.
Nice.
But it's usually like kind of self-improvement, leadership, team building, business type stuff. And try to make it meaningful, but also fun. And it's, real quick read. And
yeah,
it's just something fun. And few people have seemed to like reading it.
Yeah, if you've enjoyed this episode and listening to Rob and Tony talk as well, all of the details are below. You can find Moceri Construction at mocericonstruction.com, on Facebook. The links are all below. And then if you want to have a fun, quick read on, like Tony was saying, if you enjoyed listening to him talk today, I know I like reading his blog, so go check it out. It's tonymoceri.com, and that's all below. Obviously, if you've enjoyed this episode too, please find us on YouTube. So we have a full production YouTube video that will go out, and feel free to subscribe if you like that and like hearing from awesome people like these two guys. And guys, thanks so much for joining me today, and really appreciate your insight, and I know everyone else that's watching does as well. So
thank you, Leo. I think this is a great thing you're doing, kind of, connecting our community when it's tough to be connected.
Via computer.